August 17th, 2010. From fur farm rescuers to freedom fighters. This picture here is what a fur farm actually looks like. Tiny little cages with wire floor bottoms so that the urine falls through to the ground underneath. Unfortunately, a lot of the feces, most of them, and the food and bones are trapped in the cage with the animals. And as you can see, there's very minimal shelter from the elements, because when people buy fur, they want thick fur, and so these cats are forced to put on huge coats by being exposed to frigid temperatures. The whole thing is just wretched. Most of you know that the sanctuary was started with Windsong the bobcat in 1992, who inspired us to do fur farm rescues in 1993, 1994, and 1995. When those last cats were rescued from the fur farm in 1995, that closed the era of cats being farmed in the U.S. for their fur. To our knowledge, there were no more fur farms who were raising and killing cats for their fur within our borders. But there was a fur farm left in Canada. We began negotiating with them to do the same thing there that we had done here: buy every cat they had if they would agree to quit raising and killing cats for their fur. The price was going to be $90,000 to buy all of the cats, and we would have to build cages for them as they arrived, which run us about $7,500 per cage. The negotiations took 2 years, but in late June of 1997, the first 4 kittens arrived: Apollo, Zeus, Boris, and Natasha. They were only 2 months old and about as unfriendly as they come. A month and a half later, Don went missing. In our last story time, I told you about all the other cats and kittens who were in need of intensive care at the time of his disappearance. The chaos was just indescribable. And I don't mention that here, so apparently I'm referring to another time that I had spoken to the volunteers. I would do these story times at our volunteer meetings. Everybody loves story time, when I would tell them about how some of the cats came here, things that maybe they didn't know about the cats. So what was going on, because I still remember all of that chaos, right at the time Don disappeared, we were just overloaded with kittens. I had Hercules, who was a baby, and being a snow leopard, he was extremely fragile, and so he could only have bottled water his entire life, and I had to keep things just immaculately clean because snow leopards don't have any kind of immune system. At the same time, I had Katera, who we just talked about yesterday, and I had given a tribute to him yesterday, but at the time, I had just taken him from his mother. This was all happening in August of 1997, and he couldn't remember from one feeding to the next, and he would be so hungry, and he would be chomping and biting at the nipple, and yet he couldn't remember how to nurse, and he would be biting my fingers. They were all scarred and bitten from all of his thrashing and scratching and biting, because he would be so hungry between meals and so frustrated that he couldn't figure out how to eat, and so I'd have to give it to him very gradually so he didn't choke. And then we had, I think, Elijah and some other caracal, I don't remember, maybe Rose, who were tiny little kittens that Don had been in charge of taking care of at the time, and now those had fallen to me to take care of. And then Jade and Armani, I think, were still very small. Jumanji and Magic and Aurora, and there was a cougar, Enya, I think. All of these guys were youngsters, and so there was all of the chaos of trying to take care of those youngsters who all had their own different issues, and being able to run the sanctuary, and all of the chaos going on with the conservatorship, and having to go out and figure out where were all the planes and the boats and the cars and the trailers and the pieces of property that were in different people's names and different company names, and trying to put all of that mess together. All of this was going on during the time of his, right after his disappearance, or right before, in the case of the cats. So yeah, the chaos was just indescribable. 2 of our volunteers stepped in to help. Lenore offered to take Boris and Natasha and one of the cougar cubs to help alleviate the pressure on Jay. So apparently there were cougar cubs, and I'm thinking she had a cat her cougar was Katrina, and maybe Fleetwood was the sibling. Anyway, it says let's see. 2 of our volunteers stepped in to help. Lenore offered to take Boris and Natasha and one of the cougar cubs to help alleviate the pressure on Jamie and I to provide the around-the-clock care to so many youngsters. Jackie took a bobcat and 3 cougars. Yeah, I think she took Fleetwood, and I don't remember the names of the other 2. All of the people who adopted cats from us back then, I can only think of 2 people who didn't end up accidentally killing or returning them, Lenore and Jackie, although Jackie did send back Enya and her brother. Yeah, I guess Fleetwood did come back. Over the years, both have asked me to take all of the cats back, but with a little persuasion, arm twisting, I have been able to get them to keep their commitments to the cats. Both take a lot of pride in the fact that they have exotic cats as pets, but I think both would tell you that they wouldn't do it again if they had it to do over. The picture, which isn't here, of Boris and Natasha, which were 2 males, who live on Lenore's lanai. She still can't touch the cats, and can never know the kind of love that we expect to be able to give and receive from pets. The cougar died last year. The reason I want to tell you about these cats today is because both of these former volunteers have called me recently with concerns about legislation we are trying to pass. Our opponents, the people who breed, sell, and exploit wild animals, sent out a letter to permit holders in Florida telling them that the laws we are trying to pass will cause them to have to euthanize or relinquish their pets. That isn't true, but the animal terrorists, as Jamie calls them, can't get any support for their position if they actually tell the truth. They have to make up scare tactics like this to get support for their abusive industry. The laws we seek to put in place will ban the breeding, buying, selling, and possession of exotic cats. But there is always a caveat built in to grandfather in the animals that are currently possessed. When people try to give up their cats, we always try to find ways for them to keep the cats, because the animals don't like change, and the people who bought them should keep their commitment to the animal, if that is at all possible. There is rarely room in good sanctuaries for exotic cats. This isn't true anymore, but that was true then. So we will always advocate for regulations that enable the cats to stay with their owners if at all possible, and if it is suitable for the cat. What a ban would prohibit is bringing more animals into captive situations, and would close the loophole caused by people claiming they had the animals prior to the ban. That is why they must register the animals at the time of the change in the law in order to keep the animal. The only cases I know of where animals were confiscated after a ban was when people refused, after being advised and threatened with confiscation several times, to register their animals. Even though our former volunteers have kept their commitments to the cats, you can just tell from the look in their eyes that these cats would rather not be living their entire lives in a cage on the lanai in a subdivision. They don't make good pets, and with your help, we can ensure that no more cats like them are bred and sold into that trade. Next month, our cat laws site will be integrated into our Facebook fan page, and it will be easier than ever to get more people behind this movement to end the abuse. Chris has grown that site to have more than 20,000 fans. I have been so pleased with the number of letters that you have been able to generate from the gift shop, and through asking your friends to visit our catlaws.com site. Now that you are getting the hang of checking people in for tours with the computers, I hope that you will start getting comfortable with helping them sign lots of the online letters when they get back from their tour for on the same terminals. In this story, I spoke about some dumb things I did, like placing cats in pet homes, and some failures I had, in that I was never able to shut down the Canadian fur farm. So I'd like to leave you with a quote by Theodore Roosevelt to encourage you to take bold action, even if you aren't sure of your success. Far better is it to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to take rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy much nor suffer much, because they live in the gray twilight that knows neither victory nor defeat. If you're enjoying these readings from my diaries, please like them and share them. That helps me reach more people with the message of why these big cats don't belong in cages, and we all appreciate you for doing that.